In February 1554, one of the most shocking executions of the Tudor period took place. A young girl who'd ruled England for 9 days was brought to the scaffold, and her head was struck clean off in one strike by the axeman. Lady Jane Grey is seen as a rather tragic figure in English history. She's a queen who sat on the throne for 9 days. Lots of historians debate whether Jane actually wanted the throne. Some say she didn't, and lots of people actually consider that she actually accepted the role, signing her name off as Jane the Queen in some official documents. And today I'm at Bradgate Park taking some shade under one of its lovely oak trees on the hottest day of the year. I'm here to tell you about a remarkable tribute to the fallen Tudor Queen that the groundskeepers of Bradgate Park paid to Lady Jane. So as always, to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. But let's find out about how these groundskeepers paid tribute to Lady Jane Grey. So behind me in the distance you can see Bradgate House, the place where Lady Jane Grey was educated and raised by her parents. We know that Jane had one of the best humanist educations of the Tudor period. She was a scholar, she was a skilled translator, and many of the teachers commended her for her effort at school. We also know that Jane's childhood wasn't very happy either, and she was pushed towards education and wasn't really allowed to have too much fun. But around me is the deer park of Bradgate Park, and today there are still deer here, but it's where lots of people, especially the Greys, during the Tudor period would come and hunt. Bradgate House itself is described as possibly the greatest Tudor house that wasn't fortified like a castle, that was just intended to be lived in. And it was a place where kings and queens would come and visit, and also other dignitaries would come too, as it was a very, very impressive house. We'll take you in there later, but the remarkable legacy that Jane has had on this place is signalled in the oak trees that are here still today. Lady Jane was appointed as the successor to King Edward VI, her first cousin once removed. With this, Mary I and Elizabeth I were written out of the line of succession. But in May 1553, Jane married Lord Guildford Dudley, the son of the King's chief minister, John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland. When Edward wrote his will, Jane was nominated as the successor, and her male heirs would then take the crown after. But this greatly upset Princess Mary, who believed she was the rightful successor, being the eldest sibling of Edward, and also being the oldest child of King Henry VIII. After Edward's death, Jane was proclaimed Queen on the 10th of July 1553, and she stayed inside of the Tower of London, awaiting her coronation, that she believed would come in days. But Jane was selected as she was a staunch Protestant, and Edward did not want the Catholic Mary on the throne, but as time went on, Mary gathered more support around England. This quickly turned the Privy Council, and they supported Mary over Jane, and Mary I was then proclaimed Queen just 9 days later on the 19th of July, deposing the 9-day Queen, Jane. A series of executions continued, with the men responsible for putting Jane on the throne losing their heads, but it looked like Jane would keep hers, as Mary would spare her. But as time went on, having Jane alive became more dangerous, as rebellions emerged across England against a new Catholic Queen. With this, Mary ordered Jane's execution. It was said she was to be burned alive on Tower Hill, or beheaded as the Queen pleases, and her husband Guildford was also ordered to be killed. On the morning of the 12th of February 1554, Guildford was taken from his room at the Tower of London to the public beheading spot on Tower Hill, where he lost his head, and as a horse and cart brought his remains back into the tower, Jane saw this and cried out for her husband. But she did not have long to grieve, as she would also lose her head that day. She was taken out to Tower Green inside the walls of the tower to be beheaded. She stood on the scaffold and spoke to a sizable crowd, saying, "Good people, I am come hither to die, and by law I am condemned to do the same." The fact indeed against the Queen's Highness was unlawful, but touching the procurement and desire thereof by me or on my behalf, I do wash my hands thereof of innocency before God and the face of you, good Christian people, this day. As Jane knelt on the scaffold as the executioner stood with his axe, she pleaded with him to dispatch her quickly. She was allowed to lie down and was then blindfolded, and then she lost some composure and she could not find the block. She was guided by an onlooker, and then in one swift strike her head was taken clean off. For the staff of Bradgate House and the Grey family who lived there, Jane's execution was very shocking and upsetting, and the groundskeepers and gardeners paid their own specific tribute to the young girl whose life was lost. Jane had spent a large amount of time at Bradgate House and also Bradgate Park, and the gardeners then made their own tribute by taking off the heads of the oak trees inside of the huge deer park. They pollarded the ancient oak trees, losing their heads like Jane did, and today you can still see that some of these oaks carry the pollarding that occurred around 500 years ago. Some of the ancient trees still exist inside of the park, and with this, the tribute to the 9-Day Queen lives on. Maybe this is one of the ones that's pollarded. So to pay respect to Jane, the gardeners and also the groundskeepers inside her childhood home took the heads off their oak trees to symbolise Jane losing her head too, as a mark of respect. Still, some of the trees around here are a different shape, caused by the pollarding that happened 500 years ago. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe for more Tudor history videos. Thank you for watching.